I'm Ali Patterson, and welcome to the first ever Regtech show. In this episode, we look to the future and learn how incoming regulations of GDPR and PSD2 are going to galvanise the entire finance industry. We speak with FileFacets, who are keen to help companies make the most during this mercurial period. We also chat with Wells Fargo and ING about their game plans for 2018. So first of all, I sat down with Chris Perram from FileFacets to talk about some of the challenges facing the industry at the moment.
The thing that every financial services company in Europe and the world is worried about right now is GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation from the EU. What that's obligating them to do is to ensure that all personally identifiable information is protected. They have consent from their customers and their vendors and their employees to store and use that information. There are serious fines for not meeting their GDPR obligations, and it is something that every financial institution in the world right now is struggling to be compliant with. And those things come into effect May 25th, 2018.
Why do you think that banks in particular should be worrying about this? Because surely they've got their data all perfectly organized, ready to adhere to this regulation.
Right. First of all, it's all of the data. It's not just structured applications, loan applications or mortgage applications. It is all of the data that they're collecting and using for marketing purposes. So it's not always as simple as opening up a database and doing a quick query. Secondly, the consent rules around being able to repurpose the information that they have about you to sell more products to you, or perhaps sell on that information to some organization, maybe a subsidiary, requires your consent. And so that whole consent part of having to go back now to their millions of customers and explicitly requesting consent is a daunting task, and they're very concerned about that. And the fines that are embedded in the regulation is to the tune of 20 million euros or 4% of global revenue, whichever's higher. So banks, being historically very profitable and high revenue business, are particularly at risk in that whole penalty regime.
Next up, I spoke with the Chief Innovation Officer at ING, Benoit LeGrand, to hear about how he thinks GDPR will be a big opportunity for banks. It is hailed by some as an extinction level event, but what are the opportunities with GDPR?
It lies in the values which you put behind. If you see GDPR as another constraint, it is, somehow it's making things complicated, but I think it's also a way of respecting customers and empowering him just to give its own data, right? So we see this as a interesting opportunity for us to, again, put the customer more in the center and giving them more appropriate services, right? So, of course, things are being made complicated in the process, right? But there are difficult parts, but I think a lot of also very positive parts where customers will be even more in control of their money. And I think it's up to us, banks or institutions, to adapt to it and make sure we take and make the best of it.
Ryan Miller from Wells Fargo spoke to us about how their focused approach to big data is benefiting customer relations.
We have so much data inside of our own financial institution across the entire financial services space, and even outside of financial services. And it's a careful balance to figure out how to use that data at the right time to add value to a customer's daily life. So finding out when to surface the right type of notification or alert, the right offer, whatever it may be. And if we can do that in a responsible and sustainable, scalable manner, adding value, then it's a win across the spectrum. We've seen some instances though, and part of it is the maturity of these new types of technologies and the amount of data we have access to and our ability to surface these insights from the data with this technology that folks are still getting used to. like the Google autocomplete. So when that first was rolled out, people were starting to type something into the search engine. You get 2 or 3 words in, and it's predicting not only the 4th, 5th, but the 6th word. And you're sitting back thinking, well, that's exactly what I was going to type. And as that's evolved, we even see that Google's added in contextual elements based off of geolocation. So I'm in a different city, I'm in a different part of town, and I try and type something in, and it's going to change the autocomplete for me in that instance relative to if I was somewhere else at a different place and time. And it's bringing those experiences into financial services to add value, but also at a point in time where customers are used to them and familiar with them. And so you're dealing not only with the convergence of maturing technology, but maturing familiarity and willingness to see those types of experiences show up.
I was curious to find out about how GDPR is leading fintechs to partner with banks, and how FileFacets was making that process even smoother. How do you look to partner with some of these sort of smaller companies, and what kind of lessons can be learned and then applied directly at ING?
That's a very good question, because I've been there for a couple of years and watching them when the word fintech was not even in the Google search, and we've seen the first phase of, let's say, arrogance from banks saying, well, I think they will all die, we've seen this before, I don't worry. And on the other hand, fintech saying, well, we'll kill you, I think you'll die, dinosaurs. And now we're coming to a second phase where banks say, maybe there is something interesting there by which I could reduce my cost. Man, those guys are not that stupid, right, after all. And we also see fintech saying, well, having an MVP, so a minimum viable product, is easy, but getting a customer is damn complicated and costly, right? So we have 37 million customers, right? So we are operating in 40 countries. So we have 50,000 employees and knowledge. So this is something we can bring. So today we're more in the partnering mode, and we have 140 different partnerships which are operating with fintechs, from small to bigger. So we see this more as an opportunity for us to change a culture, learn things differently, embed the way of working of those guys into our operations.
We're very low risk in that we don't manipulate data. So when we do a deep dive on an organization's repositories across the enterprise, there's zero chance that anything will be manipulated. And so it won't fall out of any kind of requirements or compliance, by us doing our analytics on that content. The other thing is that, and more importantly, is that we have a holistic view of data analytics. So we don't point at a particular repository or a particular region or office. We approach it from an enterprise perspective. And so regardless of where you are in the world, what language it is, how many people are in the office, it's immaterial. We point at it all, roll those analytics up into a single view across the enterprise.
The first thing for Wells, being a company that's a little bit more than 165 years old with 90 different business and product groups, is getting the data to a point where we can rationalize it across all of our different systems. And once we can do that in a manner that allows us to look at a customer the same over their entire relationship, then we have something really powerful. And so everything that we do at the company is focused on what the customer wants, looking at it through their perspective, and then leveraging data to make the right type of decisions for them.
How easy is it to implement your solutions into a bank, and what sort of time scale are we looking at, especially with GDPR just around the corner?
That's an excellent question, and because it's actually one of our value propositions, one of our differentiators. We're a hybrid cloud solution, which means that we can deploy in a matter of literally minutes. We can be indexing within an hour, and we can be producing results within a day. And so that's really a powerful differentiator for us. The first question everybody asks is, yes, but what about security? How secure is your system? And and where are the risks in the data processing? I answer that in two ways. One, no content ever leaves the premises. That's why we're a hybrid solution. We have a software that runs in a virtual machine in the domain that manages that content and indexes the content in the domain. So at no time is the data ever actually outside of its normal protection. But secondly, we can also deploy in a private cloud environment so that we can that a bank could actually deploy this within their domain, within the but in a private cloud infrastructure. So that's really cool.
So what's on the cards for the future? And what other issues will banks run into once GDPR comes into effect this May?
So how is it going to change the financial sector? Probably not so much in the standard processes that they have currently. Most of their regime is regulated by other acts and regulations, and so there's not going to have a lot of effect on their processes and their workflows and that kind of thing. What it's going to have an effect on is the level of risk that each organization has, and because they are so risk averse, appropriately so, that's going to have a very chilling effect on how they market, sell, and interact with customers. That's really where it's going to be the most impact.
One of the big points is that you can innovate, and it's nice, you can spend money, but I think also we are looking on measuring better how impactful those changes are. And I think we need to take a short-term and long-term perspective, because we're making things for 5 years, 10 years from now, right? So this is for us on the agenda, just like showing the effective impact, which can be financial, can be commercial, but it can also be cultural by changing habits. If we want to work with 140 different Fintechs in this company, then there are many people in this company working with it, so learning the ways of working. We are training our people, and it's helping us being more effective in using the money which we spend on IT development, right? So those are different measurement points which are very, very valuable. So measuring it better and communicating better, I think, are certainly things we're working on. And also, of course, transforming ING into a platform, to be the go-to platform in the next year's economy. So this is certainly one of the focus which we have. One of the big points is that you can innovate, and it's nice, you can spend money, but I think also we are looking on measuring better how impactful those changes are. And I think we need to take a short-term and long-term perspective, because we're making things for 5 years, 10 years from now, right? So this is for us on the agenda, just like showing the effective impact, which can be financial, can be commercial, but it can also be cultural by changing habits. If we want to work with 140 different Fintechs in this company, then there are many people in this company working with it, so learning the ways of working. We are training our people, and it's helping us being more effective in using the money which we spend on IT development, right? So those are different measurement points which are very, very valuable. So measuring it better and communicating better, I think, are certainly things we're working on.
I think this is one of those places where the regulation is further engendering the consumer propensity to have control over their data. And so not complying with it would put us at odds with not only other financial services companies, but a broader ecosystem of technology providers. If a customer is already able to log into Facebook or Google or Amazon or Apple and have control over their data and be able to turn things on and off, but they don't have that same level of control with their bank, then they're going to naturally gravitate to some sort of a fintech company or other provider that already endorses that sort of model and is able to deliver that service to them. So in my mind, the regulation just formalizes something that we should all already be doing.
I was listening to a really interesting seminar last week about that particular thing about privacy. One person had requested that their Tinder account be not deleted, but they wanted to know what was in it. Okay, and so in GDPR that will be free. Today you can actually ask the question if you can afford to pay for the answer. But it was really interesting because she got 800 pages worth of data back because they had information about her from Facebook, Instagram, all of these online systems that they were able to automate the discovery of things about her in these different environments. And I think that AI can have a really significant impact, positively, perhaps negatively, in the financial sector when they start to approach how they deal with people using these kinds of technologies. Could be scary.
On the next episode of the Regtech Show, we take a look at some of the other opportunities that GDPR presents.